Good afternoon. Ta bene. Tassa hamaroika. Nanani atsa yani suara mohatsi. Tsuk ninai nakimar. Washington, D.C. nakanikat. Nanat namana tsa kerchina tassa kozadna tassa ahedina tassa coffeena. Good day and hello everyone. My name is Julian Guerrero. I come from Lawton, Oklahoma. I live and work in Washington, D.C. My families are the Kirchi, Kozad, Ahedi, and Coffee families. Colleagues, relatives, Wingapo. This afternoon, I join you today as a Namana and Koigu person, Comanche and Kiowa. I just so happen to be the director of the Office of Indian Education at the United States Department of Education. I would be remiss not to express special gratitude to the Planning Committee and the various leaders in the VTEC leadership. Let me be honest with you. There's something unique about VTEC going on here. Since last Thursday, I spent a few hours speech writing for my remarks today. And as I was reading through VTEC's Guided Arrow newsletter, I studied today's theme, Reclaiming Identity, a century of resilience since 1924, and how fitting it is to make today about hearing powerful, well-written, unheard stories of the Virginia Native people's history, with also what it means to have survived so much and set themselves on a course to go beyond surviving and onto a path of years of thriving. History tells us many things. It tells us about what to look for, what not to look for. It tells us about who to trust and who not to trust, what to see and not to see, how to learn and how to learn better. But above all, Virginia's history, no, Native peoples' Virginia's history and their story can teach us all about something today. Your story can teach us how important it is to create space and let your voice flourish in spaces never thought of before. I'm happy to reflect and remember about some of the pivotal moments in a time that led to the mission of VTEC today. VTEC's vision and values of this consortium. So if you will indulge me, on January 9th, 2020, VTEC elected board members giving birth to a new founded organization that would work diligently to instill and ensure traditional knowledge of member nations, that they would have a collective space to unify an educational strategy, but also a call to action. On September 29th, 2020, VTEC was notified to be a recipient of a State Tribal Education Partnership Grant from the U.S. Office of Indian Education, funded by national activities from congressional appropriations, and to fulfill its authorized activities under Title VI, Part A, Subpart 3 of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. Before VTEC, I did not know that before the ESEA of 1965, in 1964, Sharon Indian School closed, and the county used it for office space. 20 years later, in '85, the Upper Mattaponi tribe petitioned King William County for the return of the building and subsequently returned to the tribe in 87. It was only 40 years before the closing of that school on June 23rd, 1924, only 40 years before that these United States of America had passed the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. My great-grandparents, Melvin Sr. and Nettie Kirchie, God bless their memory, were born in 1921, just 3 years before the Citizenship Act. They were born without a guarantee of American citizenship. My toko, great-grandfather, had to ride horseback all the way from Oklahoma Indian Territory to Washington, D.C., just to change his name. These experiences seem so distant, and maybe they strike a sense of lowliness and grief. But I challenge us to look at these experiences, these struggles, as knots in a rope. A rope that tells us that the days that made us stronger than any other peoples could ever be. Knots on a rope like that was used by the Pueblo's people and their leader, Pope, who stood up to injustice and coordinated his people and freed them from oppression, redefined their future across all Pueblo peoples. Knots on a rope that somehow got stronger because its woven, complicated history became hard to untangle, and as a result, even harder to break. And for my Native relatives here in Virginia, your rope is strong. Your rope is knotted. And it can teach all of us in Indian country what it means to look back and hope, friendship, and unification. I see the seal of VTEC, and I see an aspiration towards the future, of course not without its challenges, but also full of experiences to teach us patience and resilience. I see etched within your seals the names of many peoples: Chickahominy, Chickahominy Eastern Division, Monacan, Nansemond, Upper Mattaponi, Pamunkey, Rappahannock nations. All of them entities with all of them each sit with centuries of memories since time immemorial. Their voices are heard today. And it's such a pleasure to be amongst a lineup of such voices with Chief Richardson, Chief Atkins, and others like Sam McGowan tomorrow helping doing the stone tool crafting. We all share a North Star in this work. In today's gathering, all of these principles are shared principles. I foresee a future for VTEC to equip young Native citizens with skills to uplift themselves through the trades for building a future for their peoples. I see a vision that VTEC is to achieve sovereignty through education for all Indigenous nations of Virginia. And I'm here to tell you that it is a beautiful day to take a moment and relish how beautiful sovereignty can be for our relatives' future. A future that demands partnership. A future that requires integrity. A future that is rooted in tradition, inclusion, and respect for accurate history. And friends, colleagues, relatives, as one of your speakers today, I ask myself, how do we plan to address gaps in these next 100 years? We're recognizing the 100 years behind us. What are we going to celebrate in 21-24? What will we want to do? Will it be ambitious? How can we use today beyond a moment of reflection and hunker down on the most pressing and persistent challenges, and like what I like to call making all of our efforts one effort? like charting a map towards supporting tribal sovereignty where it matters most, supporting sovereignty and all Native youth throughout the country, that we can yield the power of policy, grants, and economic prowess that truly reaches all Native youth no matter their abilities, identities, and realities. You know, in the not too distant past, Native peoples met face to face with a very young country, the United States of America. And little did they both know that their sovereign futures would remain intertwined through the peace times, the war times, and persistent through times not even yet known, not even yet recorded. This question is about the times we can't even see yet, but that we know are coming. Just like the air that we breathe today, do you even see the air that you're breathing right now? Of course you don't. Yet it is the life in your body, the energy that we possess to tackle and embrace a new day, a better dawn for a greater purpose. Relatives, I join you reminding myself of this question because we all have an enormous task in front of us. I join you today emboldened in such a cause as this, that all of our Native children, they have within them, no matter their abilities, the means to learn, to repatriate, to build, to see, to breathe new life into every corner of Indian country. That their destinies and cups can be filled with God's work, and that our refusal to silo away from one another and to do the hard work, do the right work, do the work that builds bridges between each other. Everything in my bones shows me that this work is going to be frustrating. Working together has no roadmap. We know this. No easy fix, no shortcuts, no simple formula. You can't put it in a math equation. The price is our peace of mind, but the reward is purpose. It's life. The reward is good, hard fought, pride. Despite all the reasons to say we ought to despair, we've tried before. We're here today to convince each other great change can come when we thrust power, privilege, and purpose into how we serve tribal nations moving forward. Their sovereignty comes first, always. I grew up the son of a mother and father who instilled in me how important it is to be proud of where I come from. My father enlisted in the U.S. Army as a private, retired a lieutenant colonel, 30 years in the U.S. Army, giving his life to this nation. On a short list for promotion that would have taken him to Washington, D.C., my mother served in a caregiver role too early in her life. She took care of my uncles and aunts and cousins way before my sister and I were even born. You know, both of my parents grew up in poverty. But they managed to climb out of that poverty, climb out of broken homes, climb out of broken families, and created their own cycle of success out of that poverty. I want the same for every single Native family moving forward. The way we get there is through meaningful and just and relentless public education. A relentless public education that ensures every Native child knows who they are. A relentless public education that ensures every Native child knows where they come from. To know that they are destined for greatness. A fearless public education that rolls with the punches in a world where it's so easy to get all the blame. I want a public education that honors the treaties, remembers our collective responsibility to serve tribal sovereignty where it matters most, to ensure that every Native child grows up knowing that they can come to Washington, D.C. and do more than just change their name. They can stand tall. improve their arguments without raising their voice, and advocate for Indian country's most dire needs. As we think about 100 years since the passage of this Citizenship Act, from one generation to another, Native communities have been weaving dreams, defending sovereignty, aspiring towards the future. Native peoples across these lands have celebrated countless stories that inspired a century's worth of Native stories, languages, and culture in public education. Through the pain, struggle, exhaustion, and joy, we recognize that 100 years behind us has only prepared us for the 100 years that lay ahead. Growing in sovereignty are going to mean a lot of things to many people. But I ask you that it means we do everything in our power to instill confidence, pride, and self-determination in the minds of Native scholars today and tomorrow. So VTEC, I ask you, point the way for us, and I will go with you. VTEC, point the way, and I will be with you. And may the coming days of our effort for a united Native American Federation of Tribes give us strength, prosperity, and a future for us all. Arako, tsakukamia, manamatakwa samuna, natswaika ita. Thank you very much. Go in a good way and never forget, our language gives us strength.